Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are taking a look at the June releases coming from Warcradle Studios for Dystopian Wars. June will have 4 releases coming for Dystopian Wars and a few other things coming from Warcradle Scenics as well, which is their MDF terrain set. The first one is a big box for the Enlightened called the theThule Battle Fleet set, and this introduces the flying UFO-like things to the Enlightened. From the looks of it, it looks like this is going to be a set that has 3 different plastic sprues on it. One of these plastic sprues obviously will have one of these larger disc things, UFOs, in there, which is a Mass 3 model if I'm not mistaken in the current Orbat, or it comes with an option to actually put 2 of those on top of each other to create the big theThule battleship as well. On top of that, it looks like every sprue will come with 2 smaller flyers, the mass ones, and not depicted here, but there are also 2 SRS tokens per sprue present on these. The most out there design by far seems to be the theThule Sky Fortress. Like I said, those are 2 of those discs sort of stacked on top of each other, and they form the big flagship version that you can field to lead, if I'm not mistaken, a support battle fleet in the current Orbat. When this one dropped, one of the guys in our chat immediately said, "Oh, these remind me of base stars from Battlestar Galactica," and I actually had to Google that because I wasn't familiar with those yet. But yeah, as we can see here, clearly this is a bit of a pop culture reference to those to that sci-fi series as well. I like it. That being said though, there is no need for you to assemble it that way, should you so desire, because you can always build a battle fleet that has, for instance, a Daedalus ship, which is one that is on the surface, that reinforces all of your flyers, so even if this one is not quite your cup of tea and you're not that fond of it, I don't think it is really necessary to build it that way. It also seems like it is somewhat offset and not dead in center with the flying stem. I'm curious to see how that's going to help with, or that's going to turn out with balance of these things. But I imagine that the main weapon systems can be found at the bottom of these, and they're not very clearly depicted in some of these shots. The fact that they are not quite dead on center is more obvious when we're looking at this one, the Euclid Scout Saucer. Now in the Orbat this one comes with a shield generator, which is incredibly visible straight from the top here, but it should also come with a particle beamer, and I expect that one will be mounted somewhere in the center of the model, and that probably is the reason why the flight stem isn't attached dead in center, because that's where the particle beamer or any other substitute weapon that you want to include will probably be located. Another option that you can make out of those Mass 1 flying saucers are the Pytheas recon saucers, and these come with this sort of radar relay that allows you to take away obscured from other units and stuff like that, so they're more of a scouting option. If I'm not mistaken, they are quite hefty in points, and you can get them in units of up to 4, so you can definitely start building 2 different units should you get this box. Now it's also a bit of a shame that they didn't include any extra shots from the standard 1 disc configuration, if you will, because there's 3 different variants that you can build out of that one. The Adamski Strike Saucer, but also the Hounabou or the Valtor class, they are all versions with their own weapon loadouts, and they basically become more well armed as you go up in the stack. In any case, it's good to see that the Enlightened are getting their flyers, because they are definitely the most unique ones out there. I very much like that saucer design, and it actually being a Mass 3 ship sort of makes sense now. I mean, if you look at the overview picture on the site, that looks to be the larger type of flying base that it's on, and if that's the case, this is something that pretty much rivals most other flying fortresses that we've seen, so you're definitely not getting a small model if you're buying this set. And it's also perfectly possible, like I said, to not construct the theThule itself and just have 3 different ones of these Mass 3 flyers going around, because, well, I think rule-wise they even combine better with the Daedalus set that they released a while ago, so why not go for that one? The Enlightened aren't the only faction that are actually getting some really cool stuff. The Alliance is getting a big box as well in this release window. It is the Minerva carrier box, and with that it's not just a new hunk of plastic as shown in the middle here, which is the Minerva flagship of course, but we're also seeing the first support sprues coming in for the Italian side of the Alliance. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with how the Alliance works, the Alliance is basically made up of two major nations, which is a bit of a unique thing. Most other factions are made up of one powerhouse of a nation with many smaller ones backing them up. But in this case, this is more of an equal footing, if you will, between the Italians and the French. And with this release, the Italians pretty much have caught up with the French in terms of number of ships that they can field. The big one, of course, is the Minerva-class assault carrier. It's massive. It's a catamaran design again, where you have the main deck being built on something that pretty much looks to be the size of a Mars battleship, with a smaller support deck with a repair platform on it as the second half of the catamaran. If I'm not mistaken, this one is also classed as a Mass 3 in the current Orbat, so I expect to see an update for that one, because this little chunker doesn't look like it's just going to be a Mass 3 ship, now is it? I very much like the sort of asymmetrical design they've got going for it, with that clearly large platform doing the heavy lifting, if you will, for the SRS tokens, with the other half of it being more of a repair ship. I really like that duality and that asymmetrical design. I also very much like how the plastic sprues are divided on this one. It's the classic 3 frontline, 3 support sprues, and that means that you're pretty much looking at getting full squadrons out of it. Now, we are familiar with the frontline sprues from the Italians. They can build things like the Gladius, which is your standard heavy gun battery in the front and in the back. It's got the Cestus class frigate, your standard frigate with a normal gun battery, but they can also be extended into the larger Sparta class, the Auxilia class that has no guns in the aft but everything in the front, and then the smallest one, the Pilum class cruiser as well. On top of that, you can always swap out the back for these cruisers to actually have mine launchers as well, and we'll see that there's another release that will help you achieve laying down lots of mines as well in this month. The most exciting of the plastics, though, is still the support sprue, like I said, and that one comes with quite a few ships, it seems. It appears to come with 2 of these Pugio-class destroyers, which are the destroyers that have both normal gun batteries in the front and the back, as you can see in this shot from the aft as well. In addition, from this sprue you can build a Mass 2 ship, and there's a few variants that you can make out of that one. The first one being the Scorpio class artillery cruiser, which was the one that I did say in my last update that it could probably do with a bit of a rules update, because it doesn't have extreme range, so it's a bit of an odd artillery piece, but it does come with a piercing rule, so that can really put a scare on quite a few other units as well. It's not just the artillery cruiser, mind you, you also have the option of building this Vulcan repair ship. So the Italians basically, gameplay-wise, provide the toughness of the Alliance fleet, and getting a few repair ships up there can definitely help with taking away some of the damage that your opponent has managed to do during their shooting phase, to sort of protect the whole fleet until the fast French skimmers can zoom in and save the day via an outflanking maneuver. You of course also get the standard Mass 2 cruisers, the Jupiter class, and like I discussed in my last Tactica videos, I don't think it's a bad idea to at least construct one of them. If you're not using your Minerva in a build, it is quite useful these days to have at least one size 2 carrier, even if it's just to circumvent the fog of war rules, which can be found in quite a few of the new missions. And then the last type of ship that can be built with this support sprue is the Sagitta-class hunter submarine. It appears that you only get 1 per sprue, and well, I expect these to be sort of your more standard torpedo spam hunter submarine that you can find in quite a few other factions, but it's good that the Alliance has access to those as well. All in all though, I think this is an amazing set to get if you had bought into the Alliance starter fleet, because it's mostly focused around the French, and then getting a very large Italian fleet in this box in one go at a very reasonable price point, as you usually get with these big boxes, is a good thing. I mean, you get the big Minerva assault carrier, 6 cruisers in total. That's usually enough to, on its own, put you into 1,000 points plus bracket, and then on top of that you get 6 of the smaller Mass 1 Zebex, 6 destroyers, and on top of that 3 extra of the hunter submarines. That's a pretty hefty amount, and that's a solid basis for any force, if you look at it that way. Next up, Commonwealth, rejoice, you're finally getting your sort of flyer sprues available separately in a squadron force, especially with the new Alexeyev being released. You could get some extra skimmers. The Mass 1 hovercrafts are more than welcome to get, and yep, you can finally build out your force as well. In addition to creating some very interesting kit bashes, it seems, to create some of the build variants that can be found in the Orbat, but cannot necessarily be made with these plastic sets on their own. The flying cruisers, the Mass 2 ones, are of course the 3 possible builds that we've seen before. The Irkutsk class big sky drill, it comes with the Saransk class, which is more of a missile launcher one, that can also do a bit of assaulting if I'm not mistaken. And then you've got the Tunguska class, which is your standard 1 heavy gun battery in the front, 1 in the rear, flying version of the ship. So we all know those. The things get really interesting though if you were looking at the different hovercraft. The actual description says that you can build Guyana Shockwave hovercraft, that you can also build as Zuber-class, which is the ones with which are the ones with the rocket launcher. So the Guyana class is the one with the shockwave generator in the bridge section, if you will, of this hovercraft. Whereas the Zuber class is the one that has the missiles built in, the missile launcher system built in on the sides there. If I'm not mistaken, this part can actually be used to build the destroyer variant that we've already seen, the Boyar heavy frigate, and that means that this part can actually be interchanged with a bit from the standard Rurik that has no weapon systems, and then it creates the Yak hovercraft, if I'm not mistaken. In addition, this shockwave generator can be mounted on what is essentially the Rurik frigate frame, if you want to create a shockwave generator frigates as well. So there's quite a bit of interplay with these different parts, with the existing Rurik kits as well. And yeah, I can see why you want to get your hands on more of these if you want to create more of those build options as well. The Yak especially seems like it's going to be absolutely great if we're actually going to get these sort of beach landing missions that are coming up in the future. So it's definitely worth doing a bit of kit bashing with these Commonwealth sprues, because they're very easy to achieve that with. And then finally, for those of us who are really into terrain crafting, which I personally love, I do hope to find a bit more time to create more terrain pieces as well. You can get your hands on these separate platforms now, which means that there are 2 sprues provided in this separate squadron style box, I'll call it, of your platformers. You get a lot of extra bits with cranes, you get neutral gun batteries included in it, these lovely little power stacks, these other little door systems, so there's quite a bit of variation that you can build into them, and I think if you're going to incorporate them well into foam structures, you can really industrialize your islands, making your table really feel like it's a one belonging to Dystopian Wars, and sort of get that high industrial feel for it. So also worth picking up if you haven't already, if you didn't get the campaign set. And if you did, it might not be a bad idea to actually get your hands on some of the final Flotsam tokens that are found here, because they are used in some of the missions, such as salvage rights as well. So having more of those can never hurt, really. The final release this month is going to be the Miscam town set, which is a bit of a very Victorian era style, not just a ramshackle Wild West style of building, but a more early 1900s style of setup that they've got here. It's quite a lot that you get in these buildings, and if you've never seen these sets, these tend to be really, really big buildings as well. These aren't just tiny little scatter terrain bits. The first one being this this corner piece, the sort of cafe slash pub, if you will. They've also included some really cool first early iterations of steam-powered cars that are included, which is quite lovely. And on top of that, you get quite a few handy little smaller scatter terrain bits. This nice fence work with a newsstand, along with a few extra stands to put your newspapers on, mailboxes, that sort of stuff. So there's quite a few handy little smaller things in there as well, along with a big fire station. That can be taken apart into multiple stories, and it's fully usable and detailed interior. These are not painted, by the way. This comes with pre-primered MDF, so all you really have to do is glue them together, and you've got a battlefield ready to go, really, without having to get your paintbrush out. You can always make it more fancy, should you so desire, of course, but it's not really needed. It works straight out of the box, which is the whole idea of the latest War Cradle Scenics sets as well. You also get this nifty subway station, so you can actually fight a bit of an underground battle as well, which might be cool for your mythos setting as well, along with extra extensions and more, decent, high-quality buildings like you find in the late Victorian era. And there you have it. Those were the releases for June from War Cradle Studios. Quite an interesting month. Quite a few big releases with quite a few new things. Enlightened players and Alliance players are going to be particularly happy with these releases. And if you want to keep up to date with all things Dystopian Wars, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for any of these future updates. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!